Aloha and good evening. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz, and I'm joining you from livestream.travel ETOA News in Honolulu, Hawaii. And today we're going to London. Before we go to London, I wanted to welcome everybody on our live event. And you can either join us live. So next time, if you're not live, just go to our calendar at worldtourismevents.com. You see what is coming up, and you can easily sign up and be part of the discussion. Otherwise, you can always watch us live on ETOA News, on live stream, and, meetings, and any of our other publications, and we welcome you. We're celebrating the entire month, the launch for World Tourism Network. World Tourism Network is a discussion started under rebuilding.travel in March. After the ITB trade show in March, we started in Berlin, and the topic was COVID-19. And it happened at a time where no one really knew what COVID was about. Now we know, and we see the consequences. And this is, of course, a very serious issue, and we're following it from every angle and from everywhere in the world. World Tourism Network now has a little bit more than 1,000 members in 124 countries. And our goal is really to help everyone out in the travel and tourism industry, and specifically the medium and small type businesses. We're an organization, or we're a network. We build from the bottom to the top and not from the top to the bottom. That means our goal is to have very active local chapters. We have 12 so far in various parts of the world. It's growing. And we have discussion groups. These are global groups about various subjects. And our global setup and communication is really meant to support these local issues on a larger platform, what may give local issues a higher importance at some times. Now, without further delay, I'd like to welcome a good friend and also a member and a hero. You all know we have the Tourism Hero program under World Tourism Network, and we have 16 heroes, and one of them is sitting right here. That's Thomas Jenkins. He has been a victim and a participant and a leader in the COVID crisis from the very first moment. For those that don't know Thomas, he is the CEO of ETOA, the European Tour Operator Association, I believe it stands for. And we call him really Mr. European Tourism. And if anyone is familiar with the situation, what is going on in Europe, it's Tom. And as you all know, if you read ETOA News or any other, watch any other news media, there has been a situation, it's developing in the UK. The United Kingdom is pretty much cut off from most parts of the world because of a new strain of the coronavirus, and what is, of course, quite frightening. And Tom is right in the middle of it and will give us an update. And specifically, we're going to talk about the status of the travel and tourism industry, what to expect, and then maybe open up for some questions. Tom, welcome, and thank you for joining us. Please unmute yourself. Tom, you're muted still.
Well, thank you, Jürgen. That was certainly a humbling introduction. Nobody feels less heroic than I do, particularly at the moment in a lockdown London. It looks like the set of the Amiga Man at the moment. There is nobody here. I think you've alluded to the fact that the UK has suddenly found itself to be rather like Typhoid Mary. I think, frankly, this is going to pass. I think the initial blockage on all outgoing freight, for example, with France is going to be cleared in the next 24 to 48 hours. And I think whilst it's going to be very difficult for people in the UK to be traveling overseas in the next few weeks, whilst people come to terms with this new strain of the virus, which is concerning. I don't want to downplay the alarming nature of it. I imagine that within 2 to 3 weeks, things will start getting back to normal, if you can refer to the current crisis as normality. The one thing I might quietly point out is that the situation, whilst very concerning, doesn't actually change much in terms of tourism. At the moment, there is effectively no tourism in Europe. If you look at, in a moment we'll look back at what 2020 what's happened in 2020 and what might happen in 2021. But at the moment, the only thing moving, the only thing supposed to be moving or expected to move, are people visiting friends and relatives, effectively people returning home for Christmas. And this has been disrupted, and it's obviously very, very disheartening and sad for those people who find themselves stranded in these circumstances. And our heart goes out to them. But in terms of tourism, in terms of the business of tourism, very little was going to be happening now anyway. So what's been lost in tourism terms is nugatory.
Now, how's you said you're in the office, right? Or you're working from home?
I'm in my office. Someone has to open the post and answer the telephones, and it lands to me. Mercifully, I live not far from, not because I've chosen the office because it's near my house, I hasten to add, but I live in a kind of dodgy area of Camden, and it's quite easy for me to cycle into work from there. So if anybody can do it, I do it, and I do it very cheerfully. It's very nice to be. It's great to self-isolate in central London. If you want to, get in touch with yourself and your inner zen, the place to do it is London at the moment. You won't have anybody disturbing you.
Is the tube running? The buses are running? Or
everything's running. Well, the tube is running. The buses are running. The taxis are moving around. They're very keen for business if you want to come to London and see that. And what they call essential shops are open. And this is it's a reasonably broad church. It means that hardware stores are open, for example, food stores are open. Restaurants are open to do takeaways if that's what you want. And rather bizarrely, certain things like cycle shops are open. Our Prime Minister was a keen cyclist in a former life. So I think, there is some economic activity taking place. And certainly, there are all the supermarkets, for example, are there, and they're not unbusy. There's a build up to Christmas at the moment. But the scenes in London last Saturday, when they announced that they were closing effectively the service economy as of 12 o'clock Saturday night, that was very, very busy indeed. People are desperately trying to get their Christmas shopping in before all the clothes shops and all the department stores close down. And they're going to be shut like they are under lockdown for the next 2 to 3 weeks until this current phase blows over.
Now, with so many countries now locking their borders towards the UK, what flights are operating? I think the United States is still open to you guys, right?
That's a piece of information I don't have, to be frank. I mean, you can look it up. Your audience can look that up immediately. I believe the US is still open, yes, and there are countries which are still flying. I think it's just at the moment until people. I mean, I'm hesitating because I wonder whether my opinion is valid, but I think that this is entirely natural reaction for national governments to react in this way because they've got a domestic audience they need to appeal to. My instinct is that if this new form of the virus is as virulent as people say it is, and if it's already been spread, then it's out of the bag. Pandora's box on this has been open, and it's going to be very difficult to contain. But I think it's entirely natural for governments to react in this way. So we just got to sit out and wait and see what happens. I think, as I said, things will start becoming under control within the next 2 to 3 weeks of this particular reaction to the new form of virus.
Of course, the UK together with Bahrain were the first 2 countries opening up for the new vaccine, I believe. And how's this going?
It seems to be going quite smoothly, insofar as anything's going smoothly at the moment. I think they're phasing it in through the core priorities. So it's the people who are most vulnerable are getting it. There is a debate, for what it's worth, that maybe they should be not prioritizing the people who are most vulnerable, but they should be prioritizing the people who are most vital to the economy. I don't think it's too much of a debate. The political will is to say that people in care homes, people over 80 get it first, then people over 75 with pre-existing medical conditions that make it vulnerable. It's being distributed according to the need of your health rather than the need of the economy. Someone was saying that they really ought to be inoculating freight drivers and public transport workers, but I'm sure this will come in due course. We're expecting it to be rolled out over the next 6 weeks.
So is there a time frame when for the vaccine?
I've yet to see, you know, the crucial point is at what point is a sufficient proportion of the population inoculated that there is herd immunity. This thing was very fashionable back in March, April of this year, has more or less dropped off the radar, but effectively that's what a vaccine gives a society. It gives it herd immunity. And I don't know at what point, we've yet to have a date at which point herd immunity cuts in, at which point it's very, very difficult for the R rate, the reproduction rate of the virus to get up anywhere near 1. As long as it keeps going down, and it will keep going down, the more people get vaccinated, then we're looking towards a post-COVID situation. But when that is, Jürgen, if you could tell me, I'd be really glad to know. And it's not, and from tourism terms, of course, it's not just what's happening in the UK or what's happening in Europe. It's what's happening globally. It's the point at which everyone actually thinks that this COVID story is history, and we can move around and be confident in moving around. And at that point, insofar as people are making guesses, and all estimates on this have been rightly characterized as guesstimates, we're looking at June, July before anything substantial starts cutting in. But maybe that's pessimistic, I don't know.
Today I heard a discussion on CNN with the governor from New York and the mayor of New York City. And New York is now the only state, except for Hawaii, where there is a COVID test required before you arrive in New York. That means flights operating from London to New York, people have to have a negative COVID test before they arrive. Do you think this is this should become the new norm in the world, that people before they step on an aircraft should get a test, and the test should be negative?
No, I mean, what do I think? I think we're going to reach, as I said, I think we're going to reach a stage where this is history, where there is enough, there is enough vaccinated people out there for this to be unnecessary. I think in the short term, it's perfectly valid. You've got to, what you're watching is you're looking at politicians reacting partly because there is a health need, and partly because they need to be seen to be doing something. And people like me criticize them for reacting. And as you know, over the last couple of decades, we've been very vocal at watching politicians cause more damage than the thing that they're trying to ameliorate, be it terrorism, be it anything. But we also have to expect that they live in a real political world. And if there is a virus flying around, and there is an action they can take that looks like they're being tough, they're going to take it. And if it means that tourists or incoming visitors are inconvenienced, I'm afraid that incoming visitors will be inconvenienced if it makes political sense. And this is what we're looking at. I don't think, as IATA is very, very keen to point out, flying in itself doesn't generate too much transmission. And incoming visitors, once you've got a virus flying around, incoming visitors represent no greater threat than the native population. Yet, they've got to be seen to be doing something, so this is what they do. I think until we see a vaccine, until we've got the situation under control, travel is going to be a very, very minor phenomenon, and it's going to be a niche activity for a few people. And if those people wish to travel, and if the condition on them is for them to travel is that they have to have a test, that's what they have to do. But I don't think this is a long-term phenomenon. It's a short-term proposition for what is a very short to medium-term problem.
Well, at least you see the light at the end of the tunnel, which is a good thing. There are some rumors and some, I would call it maybe extreme reports and opinion. I can tell you one of my own associates in Germany has this opinion. We're always arguing, but he thinks that there's no coincidence about these sudden regulations cutting off the UK from the rest of the world and failed EU negotiations, Brexit negotiations. Do you think there's any connection?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
It's very simple. I don't think so at all. I think I mean, you know, the world is divided into two types of people. One who thinks that everything is due to some weird conspiracy, and the other type of people are people who don't believe any conspiracy is taking place at all. As has been pointed out, both are wrong. But I think this implies a level of competence and coordination which I've yet to witness from any group of politicians. So no, it's not a coincidence. I think even if the UK was still a fully paid up member of the EU, they'd still be doing this. Undoubtedly, they would. Right. So I think, you know, what we're witnessing, which is a kind of long, slow car crash of Brexit, has its own momentum and its own agenda, independently of what's happening with COVID.
How's the mood within the industry? I know you have, I don't know how many members do you have at ETOA?
Well, we have about sort of interesting question at the moment. It's a very dangerous question to ask a membership organization in the travel industry. But no, in all sincerity, before this started, we had about 1,300, and I'm amazed at the resilience and loyalty of the industry. So I'm getting some posted. Thank you. I'm amazed at the loyalty and resilience of my members. But I think, so what is the general mood? I think, like everybody in the world, people are in a coma, frankly. Right. You have to shut down all businesses. There is no business out there, and it's very difficult to stay in business if there's no business to conduct. So what everyone has done is slash costs where they can. I'm afraid that involves laying off staff and trying to keep going as a viable business, of waiting for the dawn to break. Now, what kind of landscape, what kind of tourism landscape we're going to look at when the recovery comes is an open question. I'm, as ever, sort of optimistic about this, but there's no doubt that, you know, severe damage has been caused to otherwise viable businesses by this event. I think a lot of them will recover quite quickly. I think that the people who've suffered particularly are obviously those operators and those players who've got large capital liabilities. So I mean, people like hotels, airlines, coach companies, shipping companies. These people have got major capital outlays that require repayment, and this has been a real nightmare for them. It's possible that most of them, I think, have been able to secure some kind of long-term funding to offset this. But the majority of the industry, the big outgoing is staff, and I'm afraid staff have been let go until they can be re-employed. But I think, you know, if you look at the situation now, a lot of my members who are there to sell European holidays, both as wholesalers and as people acting in principle, these people are busy planning 2022. It's not a question for 2021 obviously is going to require a lot of adjustment and some renegotiation, but 2022 is what's now on the agenda, and they've got a plan for recovery. And that is exactly what they're doing. It's a little bit difficult at the moment because a lot of the people who they're trying to contact and book services in 2022 are either not there, or, you know, they're on furlough, they're being temporarily laid off. And also the industry is in crisis, so it's difficult to secure bookings with establishments that are fighting for survival. But they will survive, and there will be vacations. And what we do know is there's lots of demand out there. One of the interesting phenomena which has occurred almost as a reaction to lockdown has been the extraordinary desire, latent, at the moment it's just a latent desire, but it's being clocked by everyone, latent desire for people to get out and enjoy themselves. They're bored of being locked down. They want to go and enjoy life and experience life to the full. And the way you do that, folks, is by traveling, and a good place to travel is Europe.
Yeah, and I can definitely second this. I myself have been on this rock here, on this island now since March, the longest time I've ever spent in the 32 years I lived here. And yes, when I see a plane, you almost think, "Oh my God, I wish I would be on that plane," you know. And it's an unreal world. Now, ETOA declared another emergency today, a climate emergency. What's going on with that?
Well, I think we're not immune from criticism on this. I have to say, when we were canvassing our members on this, I was clearly told by quite a few that it was a bit like trying to discuss with the captain of the Titanic what their cruise itinerary was going to be next year, just after they'd hit an iceberg. I think, no, I mean, most people are fighting for survival, and when they're fighting for survival, their impact on the planet is not something that is really on their agenda. I feel quite strongly that this is something that we have to take a stand on, and if you know, this is a point made frequently, but I'll make it even so. We've just noticed what a crisis can do to the industry, and what can we do? The question is, when we know there is a crisis occurring, what can we do to ameliorate the situation? And we know there is a climate crisis happening. This is just a widely accepted fact, and it's going to be really important for the tourism industry to stand up and say, look, this is what we do. This is what we can do to contribute towards both the greater understanding of the problems that people are facing and what we can do to ameliorate the impact of our industry. And I think it's quite important for us to do this because, one, it's important, and two, for far too long we've been regarded as an almost frivolous, unnecessary phenomenon. And I don't think we're either frivolous or unnecessary. We are, and this has been amply illustrated by the current crisis, we are a vital component of both the economy and the culture of the destinations that we go to. Over-tourism is a sort of a ghastly calumny of the general situation. Tourism is the lifeblood of cities such as London, Paris, Florence, and Venice, and Rome, and Amsterdam. If you remove the tourists from these cities fail. And so we're an absolutely crucial component to these places. I think that we're a central part of the modern human experience. And okay, there are aspects of our activity which burn carbon. We've got to find a way of offsetting that. And we've also got to point out that Western society burns carbon, that this is one of the really important uses of it. And if we can offset that, if we can compensate, if we can ensure that our footprint is minimized in other ways, then we're doing exactly what we should be doing.
Isn't that an opportunity at this point?
Well, you mean, what sort of opportunity?
An opportunity to have a response to this climate crisis with in the state of the world is in right now. Hardly anyone is traveling, so we're not going to have the same numbers. In the 30 years I lived here in Hawaii, I was able to see my neighbor island, Kauai, what was never possible before. So some things are moving here.
I think you're right. I mean, to a certain extent, I don't think the solution is less tourism. I think the solution is to offset what we do and to emphasize the importance of what we do. And after all, tourism represents an important 5 to 10% of global emissions. It's a lot of that 5 to 10% is sort of existential. You can't do it without those emissions. The question, what we have to do is address, how do we offset that? How do we compensate for that? And how do we encourage the 95% of the global economy that isn't necessarily contingent on carbon? We are a carbon, we rely on carbon emissions to exist. But what we've got to do is make sure that all the other areas, from industrial, from coal burning power stations to industrial use of fertilizers, and all the other components of the global warming chain, how do we help people move that down? And this is something we've got to do.
Yeah, I was wondering if anyone wants to contribute, has any questions, just simply raise your hand. There is a button, I think, some kind of a blue hand raising button somewhere. I've never seen it from the other side, how it looks like, but please do.
Jürgen, what I'd be very interested to hear is what the audience think about when they think the recovery is going to start, and what shape they think it's going to be like. I mean, is it going to be, the conventional model that people are putting forward at the moment is that first it's going to be domestic travel, then it's going to be short haul, then it's going to be long haul. This is the sort of model that everyone is proposing. I think, I genuinely, I don't know. We don't know if it's going to be gradual, this recovery, and there are a lot of arguments to say that it will be gradual, or whether it's going to burst forth like the sun behind a cloud at midday. We just don't know at the moment. I think it's going to take some time. Tourism on the whole relies on momentum to deliver numbers. You need people going to a destination, coming back to the origin market, saying what a great time they had there, and this in itself genders more business and more business. And over the years, we've seen things build up, and then there's been a collapse in demand, and then it rebuilds again. But it's something where you normally rely, you need people going to a destination, coming back to the origin market, saying what a...
Yes, so if anyone wants to jump in here, just raise your hand. I wonder if I just can call out Stephen, because he's been always active and has listened to everything we had so far. What do you think, Stephen? I think his microphone may not.
There we are.
There we go.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here. I think it's going to start, actually, I quite agree with Thomas, it will start domestically before it branches out to the international market as well, because as right now, as you know, in the United States, with all the cases that we have here, we've got to get these cases under control first, right here domestically, before we start about looking towards the international market. And as our governor and mayor had talked about, with people getting tested to come into the country, especially into New York first, and it's going to be rather difficult to achieve that at the moment, because lots of people, they really don't want to get tested, and a lot of my clients actually, they would love to travel, but they are reluctant to get tested, and also when they arrive at the destinations to be in quarantine, and that's a major problem that everybody's having. And it will take some time, actually, especially with what's going on right now. It will take some time.
Okay, and anyone else wanted to contribute? I'm wondering, Birgit is there. She always has been active. And Birgit, you have a new book, you told me today. She's joining us from Hamburg. What is your input here? Okay, I don't know if you can you hear me, Birgit? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, Jürgen.
Yes.
Just if I may, I mean, Visit Britain published some data about 10 days ago on what they thought was going to be happening next year. And they reckon that there will be a recovery from the middle of the year. And they think that Europe will come back, but it will come back to the extent that maybe 45% of the people that we had coming into the UK, that means really short-haul traffic, 45% of the people that we had coming into the UK in 2019, short-haul will come in, will be here by the end of 2021. So there's even with a recovery and a reasonably robust recovery in the second half of the year, you're still looking at a 55% decline in traffic from 2019 numbers. And in terms of long haul, they think that by the end of 2021, it will be a 75% decline in the numbers that they saw in 2019. So the recovery that they're predicting for the second half is muted. I mean, it's real, and it's substantially better than 2020, but it's really muted. And it's looking much, much more like a 2023 prognosis before we see a real recovery back to numbers that look like those that we saw at the end of the 2010s. And I'm just wondering whether your audience thinks that's over pessimistic or whether it's realistic. I don't know.
Rudolf is raising his hand. Rudolf is our runs our chapter in Malaysia. Rudolf, go ahead.
Okay. Good morning or good afternoon. From here, it's good afternoon. Thomas, thank you very much for all the things that you have brought up. It's really interesting for me. I don't know whether you have watched us. We are here in Malaysia. We have gone in with the LinkedIn group where we have connected quite a lot of people from tourism, tourism ministers, hotel bloggers, airliners, and all of them. They give their opinion, and we are sharing articles about recovery and rebuilding tourism. So actually what you said last was more or less the focus reason during the past few days, that people are saying, yes, 2023, 2024, maybe we can have this recovery for international tourism. But we have seen now here in Malaysia, especially during the past 2 weekends, was the domestic tourism has really gone up and shot up so much because we came out of the lockdown of our third lockdown, our third wave, and everybody was really keen to go out. And especially here in Penang, where I am now, Penang is an island where we have different kind of tourism. We have the UNESCO World Heritage Site, and we also have beaches, and we also have rainforest and open areas. So what we have seen here was people really went to the beach, people went to the open areas, people went less to the town, but they still went because Penang is a food heaven as well, so everybody's going for good food. But end of the day, during the past 2 weekends, we have seen it today and we have posted it also today, we had an occupancy in the hotels of 82%.
Wow.
And in the city was about 51%, which was not really bad actually.
Is it domestic tourism? It's not tourism from Europe.
All domestic. It is all domestic, 100%.
How do you see domestic tourism in Europe, Tom?
Oh, well, I mean, the answer is there are now two domestics in Europe. There's the Schengen area, and then there's the UK Ireland area. The answer is that domestic tourism obviously last year did well, but it did well only in comparison to all the other forms of tourism. The UK, the domestic, and I think you'll find in France and indeed in lots of areas of Europe, they were reasonably full in July, August. Even so, you're looking at maybe a 50% maybe 55% of normal domestic traffic took place this year. So even on the domestic front, it's not a catastrophe. It's not the 95% decline that we've seen in long haul traffic, but it's very, very thin. The good news in last summer was that the slight relaxation in lockdown meant that people within the Schengen area did travel. I mean, famously, there was a lot of traffic from Germany down to Spain. There was actually a lot of car traffic from Germany to their near neighbors. So people at Scheveningen in the Netherlands saw more German tourists than they would normally expect. And similarly, a lot of Italy saw a lot of German travelers traveling by car. I think, but what I would just emphasize about these discussions is this is super temporary. We've got to look to a situation which is going to be post-COVID. And if we start talking about new normals that we have to adapt to, we're adapting to the wrong new normal. This isn't normal, this is abnormal, and we will recover from it. And it will be history. We've got to somehow survive it, but that's different from what you have to adapt to when this crisis is over. And as I keep repeating, this crisis will end. It will have implications, which maybe we need to touch on in a second. But as you know, I don't think people's desire to travel and what they wish to see is going to be radically altered by the current experience.
Robert, you had a question.
Yes, thank you very much to
let us know. I know where you're from, but
I am from Cordova, you know, and I am working on this subject, you know. Thank you, Thomas. It was fine, but I am much more optimistic than you. As I say that I am looking to other criteria, for example, the savings. And the savings this year are huge, you know. A lot of people were not spending their money. More than, I say 200 million, no, it's 200 billion euro, you know, were saved this year. And what is going on next year with all this money? The people will travel. For that, I am much more optimistic than you.
Well, I'm careful actually not to nail my colours to the mast insofar as I'm not actually saying I'm an optimist or a pessimist. I'm just telling you what other people think. I think you're right. I think that I think the other factor is you're quite right. People have been sitting at home. They've not been spending money. And the moment they get the opportunity to, they will. Point one. Point two, there will never be a time where availability and because of that price will be so attractive. I remember on, I think it was September the 20th, 2001, the late Bob Whitley, the head of ETOA, rang me up in glee saying one of his members had run a special event, which was 6 nights in Dublin, $399 air inclusive. And he said, these boys ran that ad in the New York Times. They sold out within 25 minutes. America travels if the price is right. And I think that's the main motto, is that this is going to be a real challenge to the industry. If we can get product out there that attracts the customers who want to come, then it will be like the sun breaking out from behind a cloud at midday. I just say that there is that theory, and then there's the other theory, which is, hey, people aren't going to move that quickly. But I mean, everything to play for. I think, Robert, you're quite right. There is, and to paraphrase one of my leading entrepreneurs in 2001, what a fantastic time to be in business. You've got demand, you've got product, you've got a wonderful opportunity to marry the two together. And it should be, you know, it should be great second half of 2021. First half's going to be sticky, but the second half should be good.
Great. Mark Jackson, you had a question. Let us know where you're from, please.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks. Thanks, Jürgen. I'm Mark Jackson. Thomas, we met actually at ITB a couple of years ago, or the last one that actually took place, I think. I'm the editor of Travel Begins at 40. and I'm also doing the climate-friendly travel course with your friends Jeffrey Lippman at Sunnex Malta. I've really got a couple of questions. The first one is about the vaccine passport. Tom, do you think there will be such a thing as a vaccine passport, which will help people to travel sometime in the second half of next year? And my second question is really to link into the crisis, the longer term climate crisis, which I agree with you completely is far more important than the temporary crisis of COVID on a planetary level. And do you think that we have the opportunity, which will be seized, to make the travel industry more climate friendly, more sustainable in the future? Because we now have to rebuild it. Obviously, the travel tourism sector has got to be rebuilt. Do you think there's the massive potential and the will to change the shape of travel and tourism so that it is climate friendly rather than climate damaging?
Well, I think there's so many different questions there, Mark. I'm trying to filter through them. I think the first thing to say is that those who know me know I'm a cynic, right? I'm absolutely cynical. I think that but I think that the climate crisis is one which is now an important top-down initiative. And this is what's defining it at the moment. Governments are taking it very seriously. Bankers are taking it very seriously. All the movers and shakers at the top end, Mark Carney, for instance, now is an evangelical climate change specialist. All the people at the top end now say this is vitally important. And if you're wanting to raise money as a business, you need to have an environmental audit. And so on one level, our response is almost dictated by the fact that there's a new environment at the upper level of society saying this is something you've got to be serious about and be seen to be serious about. And to a certain extent, that's what we're responding to that. In order for it to really work from a tourism point of view, it's got to be a grassroots movement. People have got to buy on that basis. And I've watched numerous companies do environmentally led marketing campaigns, and they've just petered out because ultimately people up until now have not associated environmental tidiness, I think is probably the right phrase, with having a good time, or indeed a criteria which they use to buy a holiday for. I mean, I remember Scandic, for instance, many years ago, about 15 years ago, made huge play of their environmental credentials. This has gradually fallen off the radar. Eurostar, similarly, about 10 years ago, were strident in their marketing campaign about how they were carbon neutral. Again, this is no longer really features in their marketing campaigns. So until it actually becomes a central plank of people's sales and marketing techniques, it's going to be a tough one to sell just on the kind of on the granular B2B level. But we think it's got to come that way, and that's why we're moving in the direction that we are.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Just quickly on the vaccine passport, do you think there will be a vaccine passport, or do you think there won't be any need?
Well, I hope there won't be a need for one. Sure. So I hope that we reach a stage where the vaccine has created the sort of immunity where it's irrelevant. And I think it's, but it's possible. It's possible that there are circumstances where it might come in useful. I can't see it happening, but I may be wrong. On this, I can be completely frank with you and say, I simply don't know, Mark. I mean, it may happen, may not, I don't know. It's, I thought it might be a good idea, but I think that what they're doing at the moment is rolling out vaccines. I mean, things like Operation Warp Speed in America. They should get a level of vaccines where vaccines are no longer mandatory for people moving around. Anyway, sorry, I've I'm elaborating on my ignorance rather than anything else.
Raed in Saudi Arabia. Raed runs our local chapter in Saudi Arabia. We had a session on Saudi Arabia just recently. Welcome, Raed. You had a question. You have to unmute yourself, please. I heard him before.
Okay.
There we go. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jürgen. And I would like to say hello to our guest today, Mr. Thomas. It's really great to attend this very fruitful workshop or seminar. And actually, my question is that since we integrated WTO in Saudi Arabia, we would like to work closely with ETOA, the European Tour Operator Association. As you know, Saudi Arabia just opened up in October last year, 2019, and it has a lot of great inbound tourism product. It offers many beautiful virgin beaches plus historical cultural sites. Archaeologists would love to visit, I'm sure. As well as there are many global events that will take place. It's only due to COVID that it has not been actually performed according to the plans. But as you said, Mr. Thomas, hopefully, you know, we will fight and we will win over COVID. We have to be optimistic. On the other hand, Saudi outbound travel is almost 50 billion US dollar a year. Of course, last summer, most of it was spent in the domestic tourism. However, our government planning to open up by January, February 2021, and hopefully it will be there. So how can we develop as local WTN chapter in Saudi Arabia a close relationship with ETOA and to exchange collaboration in marketing, in training, in technology, or in exchanging, you know, information about, you know, if there is like a safe corridor or a bubble, you know, between countries. Thank you very much. And thank you, Jürgen, for giving me the chance to speak. Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Not at all. And Mr. Habis, I would merely say this is probably a discussion which is best to have offline, as they say. But I'm sure Jürgen can furnish you with my email address. And I'm very happy to continue this conversation later.
Thank you very much. Are there
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Are there any more questions?
I have one.
Okay. Go ahead, Tom.
It's really just a question. It's more, I mean, you know, tourism is, I always feel is a terrible metaphor for a whole bundle of disparate activities. But in general terms, short haul and long haul tourism, when it is not engaged in looking at natural phenomena. So I'm ignoring beach tourism, I'm ignoring ski tourism, I'm ignoring wildlife tourism. All these activities are highly valid, but if you just look at the sort of tourism that my members specialize in, which is really city tourism or cultural tourism, what people do when they travel is they go to enjoy really the tastes of the destination, the tastes of the inhabitants of the destination. When someone wants to go to Paris, they want to go and experience Paris. They want to go and experience the Paris that Parisians have sustained. They want to go to the restaurants, they want to go to shops, they want to go to the museums, see the architecture, enjoy the urban ambiance. And this is created by Parisians. If you want to go to London, you want to go to the London sustained by Londoners. You want to go to the theatre, you want to go to the pubs, you want to go to the restaurants if you want to take your life in your hands. But you know, you can do lots of things in London, and you really want to go there and be a Londoner. Now, one of the byproducts of the current crisis is I think that the very fabric of the way in which these cities function is going to be changed. There will be change, and I think one of the changes is that office work and office workers are going to be much, much thinner on the ground. And certainly if I look around my current office, where I'm the only person sitting here with 30 desks surrounding me, if you're paying the sort of rent I'm paying, you'd want to eke every last penny out of it. But I'm surrounded by 30 empty desks. It's like being at World Travel Market on day 4. But the you know, there's going to be a substantial change to the way in which London works. And it's going to be a real challenge for the businesses in London and the culture of London not to have so many office workers here. And I think one of the things that may come from this is that, one, tourism becomes even more important in such environments. And secondly, you know, will it create a kind of leisure-based renaissance? I don't know, but there is going to be huge change out there. I'd be fascinated to know if any of your audience has an angle on this.
The floor is open, guys. Well, I think everyone is thinking very hard. Birgit, go ahead. You wanted to say something.
Can you hear me, Thomas?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, great. Hi, it's delightful to be here this morning, and I'm really enjoying this fantastic open chat. It's fabulous. I think the point that I can see has really arisen from this is people have really learned to appreciate the benefits of leisure, of what we do. If the little things are connecting with people, as you pointed out, when you travel, what is it? It's, you know, it's not a product per se, it's a human interconnection that we enjoy, and that was what we're lacking at the moment. So as soon as the doors are open in any which way, people will be desperate to go out and travel again, whether it's domestic or even regional, which I have a few family members just leaving Germany to Spain. You know, so people are, as we keep saying, quite desperate to travel again for that aspect, to feel alive. And that's what I think travel and tourism is all about.
Thank you, very good. Emmanuel, I think you're in Ghana, right? You're raising your hand.
Yes, thank you very much, Jorgen, and a very good morning and afternoon to everyone. Yes, my question is, I think we are really enjoying this conversation, but I want to find out, sir, you mentioned that people are going to work more from home going forward. I want to find out from you if you are looking at partnership with some African countries, because obviously people would want to travel out and probably work from outside London or outside UK. And we are looking at the possibility of having a partnership with some African countries so that people, your members, can actually also go outside London. Of course, if you look at COVID, we have done a bit more than most European countries. So that is my question.
Well, I mean, you know, I salute Africa in the really fantastic way that they have handled the COVID crisis. I mean, it is an object lesson in almost world leadership from sub-Saharan Africa on how you've managed to do this. So, I mean, I think I and a lot of the rest of the world are full of admiration for what you've got and what you've achieved. I think the, you know, and the potential that Africa has got above all, due to the youthfulness of your population. I mean, this is, you know, this is a genuinely vibrant proposition from a service economy point of view. I ought to confess that I am principally involved in European inbound tourism. So I'm not something that naturally looks to Africa as a tourism destination, possibly as a, you know, a high growth origin market for Europe, but not as a tourism destination. But I think what you're raising is a very interesting point. People can work from anywhere, and they've been forced to work from anywhere other than an office. And if you can work anywhere, why on earth are you going to sit in suburbia? You may as well go and enjoy yourself somewhere else. And I know some of the islands in Polynesia have been advertising themselves as a great place to do remote working. Whether being on an island in a tropical location is a good idea in the long term, only Jürgen Steinmetz can tell us. But I think
I'd be rather an exchange student, so let some people come to Hawaii. We're actually advertising it too. And yeah. I go to London for a little bit, you know, we can handle the COVID. So, but yeah, everyone has priorities, I guess, and it is good. Silva was asking a question. I don't know, Silva, where are you from? Go ahead.
I'm from Croatia. Hello to everyone.
Oh, Silva, I know who. Okay, now I know who you are. Yeah, you changed your name. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not timid as a person, but I'm not really, you know, very much a talker. But I think that all of those talks about the nature, the green, and everything. I mean, I adore green, and I love everything that is related to nature. But and Croatia has certainly much to show about nature, because we have mountains, we have the beautiful sea and everything. But I think that we have to not to confuse the green and the rest of the things that I do mainly incentives. Okay, so you cannot virtually swim in the Adriatic Sea. You cannot virtually do anything. You have to come to destination. And if now, because of COVID, people are only thinking about doing some separate, secluded something, then it's not working. You know what I mean? I think that we are too much talking about the global decarbonization and everything, but actually we need to see what we have. Of course, we are supporting the nature and everything about it, but I think that we are now having this panem et circenses. You know what I mean? When you know. I don't know whether you can follow my lead, but actually we have to concentrate how to regain travel the way it was before. Not exactly how it was before, but as Thomas, Thomas, I can congratulate you, because you are really put in a nutshell what I wanted to say. People love to see the destination as it is, mingle with the locals. And if we are going to have this fear, and I'm also not happy about these travel bubbles, you know, I'm not happy about it, because travel bubble, I don't know. So what, you go to A to B, you just travel around. Okay, you support the local tourism, but what about the people that love to see the other part of the world?
Well, I will thank you for that. I think in broad terms, I very much agree with you. And I think I mentioned that if what you're doing is adapting your product to meet the current situation, you're going to be left behind by the post-COVID situation. And the what it will be like, what the travel industry will be like once we've got through this. It will obviously be different from what it was before, but it'll be really different from what it is now. And if you adapt to what the current situation is, you're adapting to the wrong situation. There will be some tourism taking place whilst COVID is running. People will travel maybe with tests, maybe with COVID passports, but in broad terms, this is going to be small beer in comparison to what we would normally expect and normally anticipate in what we would have described as a normal year. And so I think you're right. I think, you know, the future will look much more similar to 2019 than it will to 2020. And I don't think that people are going to change what they want to see because of COVID. I think people will want to go to Venice. People will want to go to Florence. People will want to go to Amsterdam. People will want to go to Lucerne. They will want to shop in London and all the other things that drive and motivate people to travel. I don't think these things, these motivators will will change, particularly if we've solved the COVID situation. So I think, you know, the points you make, I entirely agree with, indeed.
No, I can, I think I agree with you, Thomas. And we're now a little bit more than 1 hour in the discussion. That's 15 minutes over time, so that means it was interesting. And for me, it was very interesting. But
can I ask one question? Mr. Jung, can I ask one small question?
Sure, go ahead. Who's this?
This is Puneet. I'm from Delhi, India. Puneet Rekha.
Yeah, hi, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to just say out of curiosity, now people, since they are sitting at home for the last 8 months, 7-8 months, so they are so used to on their laptops and on their things, they're exposed to so many information in the market available for the destination, for everything, hotels and everything, because everybody is sponsoring for B2C market. Will these, after when they come out from this space, what will be, do you think that role of a tour operator or a travel agent will be the same, or people will be looking at kind of a direct contact with hoteliers or maybe some suppliers or something like that? Will that make any impact on the tour operators?
I think, as I said earlier, I think this is going to be a fantastic time to be an intermediary. I think hotels, this is really a sort of a slightly exotic discussion to have, and it's a problem associated with demand, and at the moment we have no demand. But assuming that we have demand, I think hotels who are interested in direct sales will be locked on their guaranteed minimum rate distribution patterns. And guaranteed minimum rate distribution patterns may not shift the sort of stock you need to shift. And I think this is going to be a golden period for wholesalers to move in and offer disguised deals using land air packages or whatever other varieties are at their disposal. I think this is going to be a really interesting phase. I think that, you know, the crucial point will be the shoulder period between June, July, August, and I think this will become very, very interesting. And this will become very, very interesting globally, because the one thing that people sort of agree on is that leisure tourism will take off before commercial tourism, before business tourism does. And that means there's lots of spare capacity there. And as you know, the unit cost of sales on these things is comparatively low, and the price of selling it is comparatively high. And this is the moment the intermediaries are about. The last thing I'd point out is that if you think by using the internet, people aren't using an intermediary, well, I've got a bridge to sell you.
Oh, no. Thank you very much. There's one more interesting comment, and from Mick. I think you're joining us from Monte Carlo. You had an interesting comment you put on the chat group, so I just wanted to give you the last opportunity here. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. Good morning. I'm phoning in today, not from Monte Carlo, but from Monte Carlo in Italy. But yes, I do believe there's, from the question of Puneet, I believe there's a big role for tour operators, but also DMCs in the recovery after the local experts.
No, you're all right. It's just only 5 past. 10 past is your appointment.
I'm sorry, there's someone else in here. Let me try to mute. Okay, just go ahead.
I wanted to say, I believe that the role of the tour operators and DMCs in the future will even be more important, because being the local experts of the destination, I believe as well the landscape will change in the destination. So I believe we are really important for the rebuilding and the recovery phase as well of tourism, as we know well the destinations, and we are able to make sure that the sanitary, in the beginning still, let's say everything is in place, because of course trust is a very important thing in the recovery phase, and especially with the luxury travel starting as first before the events and other travel forms.
Thank you very much, and for your participation. Before I give Tom the last word, I wanted to thank everyone for attending. This was an interesting session, and I knew when I asked Tom if he would spare a few minutes, now he spared more than an hour. It's always an interesting session, and it is you just have what it takes to really get an audience interested, and your positive message is an inspiration for many of us, I think. And I wanted to remind everyone that we have a number of sessions still coming up before now and the end of the year. For example, on Saturday, we're going to Bermuda, and we're talking about COVID-19 and the impact on tourism in Bermuda. On the 29th, you shouldn't miss this one. We have Louis D'Amour, who is laying out what is next with Peace to Tourism. In his last session last week, we talked about his 35 years since Louis D'Amour became and founded Peace to Tourism. And then we're going to finish the launch month for the World Tourism Network, and this year with a fascinating presentation with tour guides from all over the world, what is put together by Mauricia. She's with the World Federation of Tourist Guides Association, and we're going to celebrate a new year, hopefully with less or no corona, because you know that the Spanish flu just finished 100 years ago at the end of this. So it's a good opportunity to maybe say goodbye, as much as we can say goodbye to corona, and start the new year on a better note. But if you haven't joined WTN yet, just go to WTN.travel. You can join us. You can see what's coming up next. We have options to become an observer. There's no charge, or you become a member, and there's a small membership fee. You can join our chapters. You can join our interest groups, and we love to have you on board. Tom, I give you the last word.
Well, I would just encourage everyone to pay the small membership fee. As a membership organization, we're entirely in favor of membership fees and of people paying it. Just to say, on a less frivolous note, I would just emphasize that, you know, it's going to be tough. We've got to survive, but we will get there, and we will have a new tourism industry. It will be prosperous. We just got to be careful, and we've got to survive. And the first part of sustainability is staying in business. Then you've got to worry about your impact on the environment. With that thought, I'm just going to hand you back to Jürgen. It's been an honor to be with you, Jürgen. It's always fun. I always enjoy it, and I look forward to the next time.
Thank you very much, Tom, and you stay safe. Keep going to your office, and hope you can get a good cup of coffee now. Now it's early in.
I will have a wonderful cup of coffee. Okay, thank you very much.
I have a beer before I go to bed. Good night. Bye-bye.